Welcome to Geek on Film with your hosts, Robbie Holmes and John Hosch. Welcome to episode 24 and 2023, folks. Good to see you. I'm Robbie.
Happy New Year. Hey, guys, it's John. Welcome to the podcast.
So this episode, we're gonna, as you saw in the title, it's our main review is going to be about White Noise. I think the other thing that happened this week is with the Oscar shortlists being dropped about 2 weeks ago. I spent a little bit of time trying to dig in and find some of the shorts because I feel like that's always a mad scramble to the end. And in the end, I found a lot of them, and John and I were able to watch a bunch. So this is really exciting to dig in and get a chance to flex different cinephile muscles and see some things that are normally not on my radar. So it's really great when the short list drop because it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to catch up. And I feel like this year's batch of shorts is really good. I watched a lot last year, but this year I was really impressed. So let's jump into what go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just to say, I think for this episode, they're predominantly mostly animated shorts, but I think there might be a couple non-animated shorts on there. But yeah,
the animated shorts really took over most of it. I also took a breath after the one non-animated short because it's pretty heavy. And even the animated shorts this year have a lot going for them. Like they're really meaty stories, and some of them in like 8 minutes or 6 minutes. Save Ralph as an example is a very short animated short that has a lot to say. But watch some television this week. Let's jump in over there. So I'm going to start us off. I've been watching the heck out of Fleischman is in Trouble. I've been holding on to it and doling it out an episode at a time. And this week we gave in. And over the last 2 weeks, we watched episodes 3 through 7. So I have the finale I'm holding on to. I cannot get over how good everyone is in this show. Jesse Eisenberg as Toby is fantastic. Claire Danes, you see very little of her until like the sixth episode, and then the floodgates open. You just get Claire Danes like elevated in the final 2 episodes I've watched. Wow. And Lizzie Kaplan is kind of stealing the show as the narrator. And we get a chance to, it's so interesting to have that comforting voice of Lizzie Kaplan through the entire show, because the show is mostly through Toby's eyes. So for the first 5 episodes, it's all Toby, and then it flips over and you get to see a little bit from Rachel's perspective. But Lizzie is still sort of the narrator.
Right. And this is the show that, Jesse, is this kind of like an absentee mother in a sense? Like the mother has disappeared, and Jesse Eisenberg is the father of I believe 2 kids, and they live on the Upper West Side of New York, and she's disappeared or something like that, right?
Yeah, the show opens basically with her dropping off the kids at his house before dawn, and he's not home, and she leaves the kids in his apartment, and he comes home to the kids being there a day early, and then she's non-communicative. So that's how the sort of, he texts her, he calls her, and then the show unfolds from there. Cool. And I'm really impressed with the show. I think the story is also really, interesting because you get a chance to see, as a person who went through a divorce in his 30s and living in New York City, one of the things it captures really is that like the entire world feels a little bit different for a little while than what you were just because you lived with one lens, and then you pivot to you're no longer married, like all these things change, and the environment around you seems to almost take on a different look and feel, because everything has a different connotation when it's no longer you and your partner, and it's you meeting people. It's you, like all this, everything changes. Your neighborhood changes. Like there's an amazing shift that I feel like the writer really captured as somebody who's been through through something like that. And it really, I'm really impressed by all the casting across the board, but also the each episode feels like a mini movie, and it's not because of the length. Like there's a punch, and there's an arc, and there's it really, the writer who wrote the book it's based on is also the person who wrote brought it to the screen. Cool. And I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, many times that's the way to go. Sometimes not. Like I think that sometimes authors can get in the way of a different medium, but I think generally it's really helpful to have them on board.
And the creator is Taffy Brodresser Ackner. So I'm gonna. It's a long name that I figured I would fumble, but really amazing. I'm planning on listening to the audiobook after I finish the series because I just want to see what was different. But I
Mm,
really I couldn't be more impressed. I feel like there's a lot of really good television in 2022, and this should be near the top of the pile for most people.
mhm. Cool. And you can find it streaming on Hulu. It's on FX
Yep,
weekly, I would imagine, and then in if you're listening overseas, I'm assuming Disney Plus.
very likely. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool.
So
Talk to me about. Oh yeah,
yeah, the other
I
one I
was.
was going to mention is George and Tammy.
We're
So
fumbling over our segues. I was trying to throw you the ball.
I know. George and Tammy is it's the story of Tammy Wynette and George Jones.
Costanza.
And it's played the two titular roles are played by Jessica Chastain and Michael Shannon. Mostly, I just want to call out that this should be on your radar.
Mm,
There's a lot of story going on here. It's not a story I'm familiar with. We've watched the first 5 episodes over the last 2 weeks.
mm,
It is impressive what Jessica Chastain and Michael Shannon are doing, filling these roles, but also they're singing. They're not only filling the boots of these people, they're also filling the microphones, which I was really surprised by, and how effective they really are. They
cool.
also have crazy chemistry. Like Jessica
Nice.
Chastain and Michael Shannon has chemistry with I think he's just a guy who vibrates all the time, and in this case, he's playing it really subtle and like a defeated, broken man,
Hmm.
and that's unbelievable to watch because he and Jessica just really vibe. The scenes between them are electric, especially when they're getting to meet one another for the first time, and you can see the electricity, the sparks between the two of them, and I think just also all the players who are playing around them are also really impressive. I mean, Steve Zahn plays a character that's part of the world, and he is fantastic.
Hmm.
And Walton Goggins is there. Like you've got some really good actors in the sort of supporting roles on this show, so much so that you may see them get nominated for Emmys. Like I
Wow.
think Walton Goggins is fantastic in this, and I think Steve Zahn is he's almost unrecognizable on top of it. Like he's got really weird, I think it's a mullet and a goatee, and it just
What's
doesn't
so
look
weird
like
about
Steve
that?
Zahn. It just doesn't look like him. And
Right.
he's playing sort of a doofy version of himself. And I always feel like he's such a charming and handsome and affable guy when he plays characters. So it's interesting to see him playing George Ricky, who's sort of like almost a tour manager, but he's not, he doesn't seem himself in the role. And I think he seems like he's lost himself into the character, which I really love.
Hmm.
But it doesn't look like it doesn't feel like Steve's on. So that's why I called it out specifically. Cause I was like, Walton Goggins can play all kinds. He's played broad characters before. I mean, he's Baby Billy in the Righteous Gemstones. So there's a lot going on for that guy. But this
Hmm.
was it's a great turn for Steve Zahn to get a chance to play this character against this caliber of top tier talent in the at the time at the top of the casting.
Cool. I didn't get to watch a lot of television this week, but I did happen to catch a new show a new miniseries that's on Netflix called Kaleidoscope that a lot of people are talking about. Um, uh, in essence, this it's a heist miniseries that takes place over I think it takes like 30 years or something. It's like the time frame is pretty vast. Um, and it stars Giancarlo Esposito, Rufus Sewell, mainly, and then the ensemble cast of the people who are helping with the heist is pretty vast and cool. The thing that stands out about this mini series is that each episode is kind of self-contained, and they're designated a color, so there's a bit of a color theme, and you can supposedly watch this in any order you want to, as long as you watch episode White at the end. Um, and I've been seeing articles and people talking about it online where this is like they tell you like this is how they watched it, this is how they wish they watched it. It's interesting. I'm not like blown away, and I'm not like this is the future of television at all.
Mhm.
But it's entertaining. And I think it's kind of cool to kind of get a it's kind of like it's not choose your own adventure, but it's like they're choosing the adventure that they want you to see.
Mhm.
Um, Currently, I've watched it in the order so far with green, yellow, violet, orange is so far what I've watched. Um, it's interesting where some reviewers are saying like this is how I wish I watched it.
Mhm.
So I might go back and kind of give it a second viewing when I'm finished and like you know choose like someone else's suggested way of watching it. Um, but I think there's the performances are fine. I think it's a bit of a novelty, but it's interesting, and I want to see it through and I want to get the full experience. So yeah,
The trailer I watched, it seemed like the production design was really sharp. Like it was trying to sort of feel almost like Ocean's 11 or something. Does it
sure,
have that
yeah,
that level of slickness? Does it feel?
yeah. You see, like you see the money on screen. You see the budget, not just with like the amount of characters, um, but also like the effects, the locations especially, and the thing is like they are trying to break into the world's hardest vault to break into. So that's kind of the challenge that they are up against, and I think the vault is like 2 floors, and it's like a huge thing. So yeah, uh, from the TV that I've worked on, I noticed some of the locations that they filmed in this, and I was like, oh, I've filmed there too, and I was like, oh, that's a really expensive country club in upstate New York, so that's not cheap. So yeah, there's some money on screen.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I watched it. Was like, wow, this has got a cast. They spent some money, and then I started looking at the production design. I'm like, God, this is edited really slick. Wait a second, it
Mm,
all looks really slick. Like, so that was my gut instinct was like, even if this isn't great, it's probably going to look amazing. Was
yeah.
my yeah, that was my takeaway from the trailer. So I'm glad to hear that confirmed.
Yes,
I
very
think
very slick.
we're going to jump over to some shorts that we watched. I'm going to kick us off with The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. This is based on a book that was written by Charlie Mackesy. And it is the story of these 4 characters. It's a boy who's on his own. He runs into a mole. So the
Hmm.
boy is voiced by Jude Coward Nicole. And then he runs into a mole who's voiced by Tom Hollander, who we just
Hmm.
saw in White Lotus in season 2. And then they run into a fox who threatens to kill the mole at first. It's a really great, like, the first time you hear the fox speak, I was like, I didn't look at the casting, and I was like,
Hmm.
that's Idris Elba. Like, it's so obvious. Like, he's got this like real great like growl like in his voice, and then you
Hmm.
meet the horse, and the horse is like so charming. I had no idea it's Gabriel Byrne.
Yeah.
And God, what a beautiful story. I tweeted about it. I was like, I'm not crying in the middle of the afternoon watching this. It's ridiculous. It's so unbelievably beautiful, from the animation to the story being told to the voice acting that's being done across the board.
Yeah.
God, Tom Hollander as the mole is just, he's like a walking little heart. Like, he's
Yeah.
so adorable. And Idris Elba, there's a great line near the end where Idris Elba says to his character says to someone else, like, "You're all you need." And I was like, I
Hmm.
didn't realize all I needed in my life was Idris Elba to tell me I'm all I need. Like, it, it,
It could be your
it
ringtone or
oh
something.
my God, it just was, it was like a warm hug of a
Yeah.
animated short. There's going to be a really hard row to hoe for almost all the other animation, because of the
Mhm.
caliber of the animation here, the story it's based on, how uplifting it is, right? Like, we watched a lot of shorts this week. Not many of them are very uplifting. This just
Mm.
is the most warm and like I said in my tweet, I think like every child should watch. You should watch this with your kids. Like it is so soft and welcoming, and yet like acceptance, and it really got me. I was very much tears in eyes, and watching this in the middle of the like in the morning. I think I caught it. I started looking up shorts at like 10 o'clock in the morning and watched
Mhm.
most of the day. And boy, it really is amazing.
Yeah, this is a co-production between Apple TV and the BBC. So like there's a really good budget for this, and it shows. I mean, it's beautifully done. The music is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like very high profile actors doing the voices. I love this book that this is based off of. Like when it first came out, I was a guest on a podcast, and this was one of the for me this was on my list as one of the best graphic novels of the year that year. I don't remember when it came out, but the book is very simple in the sense that like it's like continuous brush strokes for each character with the dialogue next to it. And I thought that this was a nice transition from one medium to another, where I think that you still got to keep kind of like that sketchy brushstroke feel to the animation. It's not, it's like you see kind of like the pencil lines and things like that.
Mhm.
But but they added color and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a nice transition to an animated film. This is a great, like you should watch it with your kids, but like this should be a book that is in every kid's nursery library, and you should read it to your children.
Yeah. We'll jump over to the Flying Sailor. So we found this. So that's on Apple TV Plus. The next one is the Flying Sailor. The New Yorker tends to do a lot of the shorts throughout the year
Hmm.
on the New Yorker theater, which is really nice. So the Flying Sailor is the story of I think it's a Norwegian sailor, and it's based on sort of a quote unquote true story. It's sorry, Nova Scotia in the town of Halifax. There was an explosion, and this is the story of what could have been going through the mind of this sailor who may have been blown off of a pier. And
Mm,
the animation is it's adorable. It's silly. It's charming. It really bounces back and forth from what feels like at the very beginning is like a hyper realized reality to like fantasy as like his clothes are blown off of him and
yeah,
he's thrown through the air. Like there's so many little aspects of this that were just like smirk worthy almost. Like I kept just getting like almost giggly at how silly it felt. But then you
hmm
realize like this, if this is a real story, this guy flew through the air. Like
really high
there's
up
a
in the
little bit
air.
of
Yeah.
weight to the short when you realize that it's based on a real story.
Hmm.
But I liked it. I think it was it's so interesting to tell like true stories in animated format
Hmm.
and at least inspired by and I really thought this was so it was not what I was expecting when I saw the initial um when I saw the title card and then the story you get is this like fantastical story of of a sailor being a ship blowing up and him flying through the air and it's sort
Yeah.
of what happens to the in his head as this is happening.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's the thing that art and movies and it's all they're all art, but the thing that they can do is like like in real time this is like a millisecond, but artistically you can spread that out and you can show him like like reliving his life, and then yeah, the ending to me was very unexpected, and I kind of was left like, oh my gosh. And you kind of have to take a second because also the art and the design of it all is very endearing and it's very engrossing, and then like it's almost like it draws you in, and then it kind of just slaps you in the face at the end. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It was a fun one. I was glad it came across my radar. The next one I'll mention, I don't know if you've seen this one, was
I have
Anastasia.
not seen this. No. Yeah.
Okay, so Anastasia is the story of a woman who named Anastasia Shinchenko, who is basically a dissident in Russia. Came out speaking against the Russian government and It's the only doc I think that we've talked about that is it's an actual documentary short. It's not an animated short. This one is the story of her getting off of house arrest and being able to spread the ashes of her daughter who died
Mm,
while she was in house arrest.
mm,
And it's really moving, and you see the impact of the life that she's chosen to live on her children, and they don't shy away from that. Her daughter won't cry in front of people because she wants to be strong, and I think that's what she took away from her mother. And her and Anastasia has a son who she tells like you should cry. Like she's seen the impact that she's had by being this strong force in her daughter's life, and now is treating her son a little bit differently. So her daughter might be like 14 and her son might be like 11 or something like that. And her daughter who was born with some medical issues, who passed away, they're all sort of holding on to the loss of this child and how it impacted their lives. But there's a really great scene right in the middle where the daughter says to her mother that this is how every conversation we have ends. You just stop talking,
mm,
you know, and like that is really powerful. Seeing like a teenager confront her mother about like I I need you as my mom, and like she's like I can't think of anything until we deal with your sister, and like but we're alive is really what her
mm,
sister it's so moving, and it was a real gut punch, and just felt like so visceral. The camera is so close, they're so whoever the documentarian is like really lives with these people. They gave real access, and
mm.
you can see the pain on Anastasia's face, like, and you can see it in her daughter's eyes, and her son is also like, it's very moving. So that's the best way I can put it. Is it's 27 minutes worth of like sort of you really having to reckon with the impact of being a dissident in a country that doesn't allow for any political disagreement, and what
Mm.
impact that had on her and her entire family.
I always find documentary shorts fascinating because you have to be so concise with what information you want to share
Mhm.
to tell a story in a short amount of time. Where, I think in this day and age, most people live to binge watch docu series on Netflix or any of the streaming services or even on YouTube, with multiple things. So kudos to someone who can make a very good um, documentary short.
Well, and the other thing is, right, like that was a 27-minute short. You heard me describe how much I was able to glean. Some of
Hmm.
it is on the screen and being said, but so much of it is the pain and emotion that's coming across
Right.
because there's honesty happening in those conversations. So
Hmm.
there's three layers of information, right? Like there's what's being
Yeah.
said, there's what's being shown, and then the emotions on their faces. Like, and it really is sort of, in my opinion, is sort of the best of what a short doc can give you. It
Hmm.
gave me a window into this woman's world and her family and the world that she lives in, not just her life, but the world she's a part of. And
Right.
when they get to the Black Sea, there's this beautiful moment where they're on the boat and she says to her daughter, like, when I go, this is where I want to go. So bring me
Mm.
here. Right. Like, so there's also like a reckoning with like, I also love the sea. Your sister did you. So there's a lot, there's so much said and unsaid in the doc. And I think that's what makes it work so well.
Mm. Yeah. The next one you can find on YouTube. This is a stop motion animated short voiced by Taika Waititi called "Save Ralph." And in this one, there is a documentary crew following a white rabbit around. You start off in his house, and he talks about how he's blind in one eye and he can't hear in one of his ears, and he talks about his job, and his job is to he works at a factory or a laboratory that does works on cosmetics and things and he's very proud of his job, and he um, wants to make sure that humans are safe from the makeup and the products they use. Um, and it's stop motion animation, so that there's a lot of texture and movement, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about stop motion animation is the textures that you feel with these characters. Like you see the fur, it's like it's a three-dimensional kind of character, because it's a stop motion puppet. And this is another one where it's you they tease they reel you in by it being Taika Waititi and a cute white rabbit,
Yep.
but it has a very serious message about animal testing. And I wasn't aware going into this, but then at the end you're like, oh, this was sponsored by the ASPCA.
Yep.
I understand now. Um, so yeah, it's definitely worth watching, but not. I mean, if you're ready to have conversations about this kind of thing with your kids, it's like just because it's animated and just because it's like stop motion, don't like just sit your kids down in front of it and like walk away. This is definitely a conversation piece, I think.
Yeah. I think what really blew me away is it is 3 minutes and 54 seconds or something like that. And you get an entire story and arc told. And it, it's also voiced by a ton of celebrities. A whole bunch of people are a part of it. Zach Efron, Ricky Gervais, Trisha Helfer, Palm, Clementoff, George Lopez, Olivia Munn, like just so many people who were a part of this. And it's likely because they're all believers in sort of what the ASPCA is trying to accomplish, would be my guess.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
this has won a ton of awards already. So this is probably in going to make it from the short list to the list, would be my guess. But it's already won, I think, 7 animation awards, including one at the Ray Harryhausen, the Cannes
I think
Film
South by
Festival.
Southwest too. I think
Yeah,
won something.
it's won a bunch of awards. I think the animation itself is fantastic. I think that is the thing that I took away from it. I think the story that's being told, the impact they're trying to have is great. I think what really blew me away is how much Ralph the rabbit like moves, and how moving, and the animation itself is what makes you feel so much, less about the
Hmm.
voices, in my opinion. And they're great voices who are really acting it out. But I was blown away by the stop motion animation. It's really
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah, this I think that, my brother-in-law, who works almost predominantly in stop motion animation, I asked um, who worked on this, and I think he said this was overseas. I think this was done in the UK or something like that. I'm not sure, but I don't think this was an American studio who did the stop motion for it.
Yeah.
Moving on, we're going back to the New Yorker for this one. If you want to catch the Garbage Man, um, you start off. You start. Tell us a little about the Garbage Man.
Yeah. So the Garbage Man, I felt like, was this beautiful, like, family telling the story of a beloved family member who was a garbage man who basically picked up and renovate and rehab things across the world, and kept
Hmm.
bringing them back home. And I think there's something very sweet and beautiful about it. It really is this, like, it feels like this overarching story of, like, of someone looking at their past and the people in their family, and having this, like, positive story to tell.
Hmm.
And that's what I got out of it more than almost anything. The animation is really rough. I found it harder for me to watch than almost anything else. I didn't love the animation style, and that really pulled me out of it.
Yeah,
It was
it's a very
sketchy. It was
yeah,
like difficult to watch, and
it's
it
very
wasn't.
frenetic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's really this beautiful, like, anything can be rehabilitated. It felt like was the sort of takeaway, but that
Hmm.
one person saw the world that way is the story they're trying to tell. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that it was they were like looking at photos as they're talking about the kind of where things came from. And I thought it was kind of sweet how, like, there's a moment where I believe it's the grandma kind of walks into a photo and becomes younger, and then she's like with her like her the love of her life again, and I thought that was really sweet.
yeah. Yeah, not one that blew me away, but definitely one
Mhm.
that I was glad I watched, and it's also
Yeah.
available on the New Yorker. All these will have in the notes with links off to them, especially right now because I feel like the shorts are hard to find.
Yeah.
So we took a little bit of time and dug them out, and
The
you should take
the
advantage of that.
yeah, they're also, I believe, in the garbage bin. Is that Portuguese they're speaking?
I think
The
so, but I couldn't. Yeah, I'm a terrible
the
with
lang
American.
the language is beautiful. It sounds beautiful, and I was like, "That sounds Portuguese," in the sense that, I mean, yeah, I could be a terrible American too, just being, like, assuming things, but it sounds like it's the timbre and the melodicness of the dialogue is really amazing. It is subtitled if you, obviously, if you don't speak the language,
Yep.
which clearly I don't because I don't know which one it was.
The next one is Sierra. Did you get a chance to watch this one?
This one I have not seen, so
Okay, so this is on the
you're
Criterion Channel. This is like the story of a father and a son, and the loss of a race, and then how there's so much going on in this, but I also didn't love the animation style.
Mhm,
It's really hard for it was really hard for me to get into the story because the animation kind of took me out of it. I think the big one here is it's sort of a little bit of a treatise on toxic masculinity, um,
okay,
and through the lens of a child and a father, and they're teaching how to be a lose well, like is really what it felt like, but it's also not a story that resonated really well for me. This is another international film. I think this one is Estonia,
mm,
and I don't know if it was the storytelling method, the base language it was being told in, the mores of society there. Like it didn't hit for me. I
mhm,
do think it's beautiful. It's on the Criterion Channel. And it feels like one of those things that was curated by the Criterion Channel. Like it really feels like they went out of their way to be like, what is a interesting animated short that we can have available on our service? And it is, it's
mhm,
real interesting, but it wasn't one of the ones I will go off and talk about like as I expect this to win. I don't even expect this to make the to come out of the short list and get nominated, based on some of the other stuff that we've already seen and talked about.
mm, cool.
What about the next one? Did you get a chance to watch Steakhouse?
Yeah, I really so the steakhouse, comes out, like, if you look on IMDb, it says countries of origin: Slovenia, Germany, France. Language spoken is Slovenian. Um, and this is a story about a man who is cooking a steak, waiting for I believe his wife to come home, but for her birthday, and but she gets tied up. She gets tied up at work because the people at work want to wish her a happy birthday too, and she kind of like almost drags her feet coming home. And he's prepared this beautiful steak dinner for her, and it gets to the point where he just when she finally gets home, it gets really interesting because he gets angry at her. He burns the steak. There's smoke throughout the house, and then through much of the short, they're like talking through smoke. There's This was a very visceral animated short where like he burned the steak so much that like he's forcing himself to eat it because he's like punishing her by punishing himself, and it's really burnt and crusty, and like the sound of him crunching on the steak was so visceral to me.
Yep.
And you know, I mean, full, I mean, this is a spoiler alert, I guess, but he bites his tongue off, and he's freaking out, and it's just very interesting because he kind of runs to take care of it in a sense, and she's left looking for his tongue. She finds it, and then she cooks it up,
Yeah.
and cut and prepares it. And like at one point he calls because I think he was heading to the hospital or heading somewhere, and she's like, "No, no, I couldn't find your tongue."
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting kind of like, I think it also, there was a bit of you know, commentary on toxic masculinity, or just like toxic relationships,
Yeah.
and how we should maybe bite our tongue sometimes, you know?
Yeah, a little on the nose for me, but I think the
Mhm.
animation was unbelievable in this short. I was so taken aback by the house full of smoke and like the level of composure that the animators had to tell the story in a smoke filled room is unbelievable. Like they rely so much on sound and on other aspects of the story to tell where things are, right? Like there's moments
Mhm.
where you can almost not see anything on the screen. And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of like gutsy animation storytelling here. Again, one that I that the story made me feel a little uncomfortable, but it's also when you're in a relationship and things are not going well, right? Like the little things matter,
Mhm.
and this is one where it's like the story I think we're being told is that he marinated the steak and was making her a birthday dinner, and she just didn't come home because it was more important. Well, she got surprised at work, and then he didn't see that as a viable outcome, right? Like
Mhm.
he took it as a personal affront. So then he just basically charred the steak and cooked it till it was dead. And then the impact was like, this is like the epitome of, holding, yourself, you hurt yourself by resent, right? Like he's
Mhm.
so resentful that he ends up biting his tongue off when he's eating this steak to make a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very surprising little short.
Yeah.
I'm glad I watched it. It was one that that will be with me for a while. I feel like the beautifully cooked tongue at the end is the thing that got me, right. Like it
Yeah.
looks like this perfectly cooked steak, and she's the one who cooks it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ironically beautiful.
Next on our list, this right off the bat, I think this might be my underdog for being nominated and winning.
Yeah,
Um, uh, My Year of Dicks, um, and which is it is a it's directed by Sarah Gunner's daughter, created and written by Pamela Ribon, I
Mhm.
believe her last name is, and this is based on Pamela Ribon's like comedic memoirs, Notes to a Boy, and other things I shouldn't share in public. And it's just a really great, um, unfiltered coming of age story about a girl who wants to lose her virginity and the year which she tries to do that.
Yeah,
This was like this was like this was like a great like a great teen movie capsulated in a short film.
yeah,
And each of her attempts and each of her like possible conquest, candidates, as it were, to lose her virginity with it's a different episode, and each one it's a little bit of a different animation style,
yeah,
um, based on who the characteristics of the person is. And I just thought it was fantastic. I thought the dialogue was fantastic. I thought the voice acting was really great, and the animation was really charming and really honest and heartfelt for the subject matter, and I think tone of all things was really matched really well in this one. And I think yeah, it's just really great. It honestly, it's hard to find this one. Like if you search this on IMDb, it doesn't come up. But if you
yeah,
go to their website and you go to the IMDb link through there, then it comes up. It's very strange. And like I don't think this is getting a lot of support. Whereas like we watch, I had to we'll have the Vimeo link.
yep,
I think connected to it. It was the only place I could really find it to watch it. You could find like a trailer for it, I think,
yep.
all over the place. But this isn't really being supported on like any big streaming platform or anything like that. And I think maybe that's a testament to like the grassroots underdogness of it all. Or
Well,
maybe it's just how like the best way to make it accessible to everyone is put it on Vimeo. So
the thing that's amazing is when I first looked this up, it was not available anywhere, and you found it the day that Sarah put it up, the
oh
director.
my gosh.
Literally, it's only been up there 3 days. So
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, I was blown away by this. I absolutely, again, I think this is the little animated short that could.
Hmm.
The fact that it tells like four stories in 25 minutes, Each one of them feels like a fully rendered story. So
Hmm.
are we getting like 7 minutes to most stories? Like really, when it comes down to like 6.5. Really unbelievably well told. It's also set in 1991, so I don't know. Like for me, that was my junior year in high school, so
Wow.
feels like really resonant. So much of what's going on there, and just how I love the honesty with which the writer approached this. The real visceral honesty of like I would like to lose my virginity, and is going to talk about it honestly, and that even some of her friends look at her askance during the shooting, the telling of the story. But the
Hmm.
reality is, she's just she's a younger woman who wants to experience something, and I think that's the
Yeah.
interesting piece. Is like each one of the stories is her experiencing an aspect of the world that is now going to build on who she is as a person. Right. Like, and
Yeah.
I think that is what we all go through. Right. She's 15 in this time period. At 15 you're trying to figure it out, right?
Hmm.
And you think you've got it figured out, and you everything you do is you figuring it out, like you have no answers. I think my favorite moment in the entire short, she comes home late the next morning, and she walks in and walks past her dad, and she's just like, I know, I I'm grounded, and she
Yes.
grounds herself. Like
Yeah.
it's perfect. Like she knows she did wrong, and she's mad at
Yeah.
herself, and but like we don't even have to have a conversation. Like
Hmm.
I'm grounding myself. Like we're good.
Yeah.
It just made me smile. It's the kind of thing that you realize when you're growing up. Like sometimes you don't need your parents to tell you you've done wrong, right? Like I,
Right.
I'm walking my own walk of shame right now. Like
Right.
it was really it definitely is my underdog pick. I think going forward.
Yeah. And
Um,
being of the 90s, there are some really nice kind of elements of like 90s sitcoms, or like what was that show with Jordan Catalano on it? My So-Called Life,
yeah,
like where like because there's a title card for like each episode, and then it kind of there's a nice fade into the next scene, which I feel is like it's very like 90s sitcom-y, and it kind of like it cuts to her as like a live action person, like with like scribble drawings floating around here, and like it was very, the tone, like I said, like the tone was so great.
yeah. This is one you should definitely seek out. Again, it's on Vimeo. It's super fun. The last one is More Than I Want to Remember. I think this is one that you haven't seen because I watched it late last night.
Yeah, I have not seen.
Yeah, so it's the story of a 14-year-old girl who's grown up in and born in the Congo, and it's the story of like her getting not living there, moving out of that area, and then her life afterwards.
Mm,
And it's beautiful. The animation style is very the humans are drawn very almost like cat like. They're this
hmm.
really elegant looking and beautiful animation style. And really the big one here is like it's it's a beautiful story about a child who is who protects herself and ends up looking for like family and connection and things like that after she's found herself a new home. And
Mm,
it's great. There's not a lot to say about this for me. I think it was uh I really want to just shine a spotlight on like the animation. I think that's the big one for me in this. It's a 14-minute short. The story is there's a lot of story, but it's relatively simplistic. It is something bad has happened. This person has gotten away and now is kind of on their own, and then finding what that means to her growing up, and trying to find a path to family or her history, and it's
mm,
really well done. Yeah, I think that's sort of check it out. It's on Paramount Plus. Again, it's a really interesting spread of where all the shorts were. Right, we've listed ones that were on the New Yorker's website, Apple TV Plus, Paramount Plus, YouTube itself, Criterion Channel, Vimeo. Right, like what an
yeah.
amazing spread to try to track these down. But there's also not a single article that says like this is where all the shorts are. So it was a scramble. Like I felt like I was mad dash around the internet to try to find them.
Yeah, I think once the official nominee list will go up, like that will be a list that might be. I think every year, like for animated shorts, like they put out like a like one place where you can see them, but I could be wrong. Who knows?
I know
Um,
AMC tends to do an animated shorts block, an animated documentaries block, so you can
mhm.
also usually see them at your local AMC. That even if they do it once or twice before the Oscars.
Some of these I would love to see My Year of Dicks on a big screen.
Yes, yeah, I think that and the boy, the mole, the fox, and the
Sure.
horse. Oh my god.
What a weird bookend of your life, though.
Yeah, very weird. So we're going to talk
You
about
are enough. I want to get laid.
we're going to talk about a couple of films that we watched this week. Mostly me, but I know John's seen at least one of them. So I'm going to take a
Hmm.
swig of coffee, and you get a chance to lead us in a little bit on Jackass Forever, my friend.
Well, so Jackass Forever was on my best, my favorite of 2022, as far as this was my favorite Lego sequel. This is the fourth in the line of Jackass movies, and they are passing the torch to some new Jackasses, but they are also, coming to grips with, still wanting to be young and virile, but really they're just old AF and are afraid to do some things or not willing, or it's still willing and then they get knocked out.
Yeah,
I think that they actually like think about these movies. Like there is thought and like how to set these things up, and they talk about that in where like they're like, I've been thinking about, I want to do this, and we need to come together and logistically do this and all this stuff. And like they're not mindless idiots.
no,
Um,
it's
they're yeah, they're reckless with their bodies, but they're not mindless idiots.
I watched this because of John talking about it as his legacy sequel of the year. I had to give it a chance, and I always find myself like really uncomfortable watching the Jackass films.
Uh-huh.
I am not a person. This is not my world. I am not the guy who's gonna cup check somebody. Like maybe
Right.
when I was 13 or 14, but like the world they live in is so completely different than the world I live in. But it also sometimes seeing somebody get hit in the face with the Eric Andre scene where he gets coffee is one of the funniest things I laughed at all year because he knows where he is. That's the
Yeah.
best part is there's like a pop-up stand for getting coffee and Eric Andre walks up and he's like, "Hey, can I get a cold brew?" And they're like, "Yeah, totally. Can I get a selfie with you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he poses for a selfie and gets smashed in the face by a plastic tube, and he's laying on the floor and he's like, "I'm so mad at myself. Like I
Yep.
knew I shouldn't have done." Like the recognition of like the dumb shit they do to one another, but then the people who become part of their tribe is
Mhm.
what really. And Eric Andre just laughing so hard at how dumb he was.
Yeah.
And then when they get poopies with the same thing in the second round
That's the
where
guy's name, by the way, Poopies,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a new jackass called Poopies, and he gets smashed in the face, and they wait until he has the coffee in his hand, so it's even more brutal. But then Johnny Knoxville comes over and he's like, "Come on, man, let's get you a cup of coffee," and he puts him right in the spot where there's one at like crotch level, and it
Yeah.
just wrecks him. And like, I'm like, this movie shouldn't be making me laugh as hard as it is. So for me, the big takeaway from these films is always is less about what they're doing and it's more about the friendship. Like you
Yeah,
can
the
feel,
camaraderie.
but you can feel when like the example I would give is when they do when Johnny Knoxville does the bull situation, right, where
Mhm.
he gets. You can see the concern on Steve O's face and the way he talks
Yeah.
about it. Right? Steve O is a guy who's done everything to destroy his body. And he even says, like, even at my worst and when I didn't care about my own life, I wouldn't have gotten in the ring with a bull. And you can see the
Mhm.
level of concern for Johnny, for his friend, right? Like, and that was the thing I was surprised by. Like, I would give this movie 3 stars. I'm not sure if I give it a heart, but I definitely laughed hard
Yeah.
for a lot of sequences. And there's also times where I'm like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like the Wee Man stunt where they get the vulture to eat meat off of him. I
Mhm.
couldn't. I was so uncomfortable watching it unfold. Um, yeah,
Or the bees hanging on to his scrotum.
yeah. That's honestly that didn't get me at all because I've seen Steve O do stuff like I'm like, well, of
Right.
course it's Steve O. Like, Yeah, I was surprised that it was your Lego sequel of the year. I can see a lot of why. It's just
Mhm.
not. It's not my franchise. Like it is
Sure.
definitely a not for Robbie, but I give him a lot of credit for. And the new jackasses they brought in, I think, are really interesting and different. And
Yep.
I think that
Yeah.
really helps. The big standout to me is Rachel Wolfson.
Mhm.
Johnny Knoxville talked about the fact that like it's almost not fun having her be a jackass because she's so like able to take down anything that like
Mhm.
she gets stung in the lip by a scorpion and like she lets it do it 3 times.
Yeah, she doesn't
Like,
flinch.
oh my god. So he even talks about the fact that like she's just too good at this. Like she's too unflappable. Like even like Wee Man or Steve-O or any of them, there's fear at times, right? Like Dave when all the crazy stuff that they've done with Dave and destroying him. But she's just unflappable, and Zach too. Like Zach Holmes, that guy is he sort of looks like a replacement for Preston, but the reality is he's a replacement for sort of the crazy stuff that Johnny does in a lot of like
Mhm.
the stuff he's willing to take on is unbelievable. Yeah, it made me laugh a lot, and more than I want to admit. But it was a surprise to me that it ended up on your list, and I'm glad that I got a chance to see it. So
Right on. Yeah. The next two are things that I have yet to watch, but I would love to hear what you have to say.
yeah, so the first one, in a completely different direction. What a charming documentary. The Automat is the story of the worlds created by automated cafeterias.
Mhm.
And the entire thing is a giant love letter to what was uh, Americana from the 1920s through 1991 when the last one closed.
Mm.
It is an unbelievable story of the it's two men founded it called Horn and Hardit, and the first one is in Philly, and one of them went to Europe and saw a sort of automated machine that was delivering food and basically said, I want to bring this back to America. So bought an entire unit and brought it to Philly and set up the first one of these. And they in Philly, they're known as Horn and Hardit. In New York, they're known as the Automats.
Mm.
I think at one point there was 40 of them in New York City, or more than 40. It's amazing how many of them existed.
Mhm.
The premise for this is that the documentarian decided to really anchor the film. So the director is Lisa Hurwitz, the writer of this is Michael Levine, and the interview really spends a lot of time. The interviewer with Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was a giant lover of the Automat, but it's unfiltered Mel Brooks. There's a really great scene at the beginning, like, what are you going to do with this? Is it going to be a documentary? It's got to be like 80 minutes. Like, what's the
Mm.
audience for this? It's so funny to hear like the businessman, like Mel Brooks, and
Mhm.
it starts off with him basically saying like, I got a limited amount of time. I don't know how much I can help you, like, but I'll try. Send me stuff, and it closes with Mel Brooks basically saying to the interviewer like, I'm famous. Use all of what I gave you, right? Like, I love what you've done here. This is an important story, right? And it's just so much fun to have that lens and how much it
Mm.
impacted not just like anyone who lived in New York or Philly, but like how much it was a part of television culture, right? Like,
Mhm.
Carl Reiner would go there every morning at 9:30 because it was right around the corner from where they were writing, and Mel makes fun of Carl because he's like, you know what? Carl is frugal, and then he just leans in and he's like, yeah, that's really just another word for cheap. Because everything
Mm.
there was nickels, so the whole
Right.
point was right. You could put in a nickel to get coffee. They also they spend a lot of time with John Ramos, who is the VP of engineering for the company, and talking about like the things he created, the machines he had to keep alive, and but what's amazing is you go through this entire story and he has all these photos because when they set up every new H&H, he was the one who set it up. So they had to take pictures. So he like
Mm.
documented their entire world. And
Wow.
when they closed the last one, they ended up transitioning a lot of them to franchises because they had great locations in New York City. But
Mm.
he closed the last one. And you spend a lot of time with him and talking about like he's the one who closed the loop. Both of the founders were no longer around when the company closed, but
Right.
he was. So you get this story like secret person behind the scenes is their VP of engineering who kept everything alive.
Wow.
What an amazing documentary about something that I am not familiar with. I grew up in New York City. Definitely know I've seen the automats, but I don't know that I ever ate at them. I wish I could. The next time I see my mom and I spend time with her, I'm gonna talk to her and see if she spent any time there. There was one down by Wall Street. I think it's nine Wall. So there's a lot. They were all over the place. They were all over the Broadway area. They were all over like Midtown, East and West. You know, it's an unbelievable
Yeah.
story and
I
really charming.
I mostly like just like remember I mostly remember them from watching like Tom and Jerry cartoons or like, in a lot of cartoons there were automats and like, like Three Stooges and stuff. I feel like I saw automats maybe, but I remember like in the down in the West Village like a long time ago they tried to put an automat in on like the corner of like St. Mark's. I remember going to it cuz I thought it was like the coolest thing and I thought I was like, I felt like I was reliving uh, something from a long forgotten time. It didn't last though, unfortunately. But I also feel like Pret is kind of like
Yeah, it's almost like the
the
logical grandchild of what they were trying to
yeah,
accomplish. Yeah.
like prepackaged like half sandwiches and stuff. I feel like that's kind of stuff that you would get at a automat. I'm I hadn't heard of this, and I'm very excited to check it out. So cool.
There's the final. It closes with Mel Brooks singing a song about the automat, but with a
Oh,
full
nice.
orchestra, and it's
But of
unbelievable.
course,
Yeah, he's
you wouldn't
such a
do it any other way.
he is so with it still. Like it's unreal how much you get out of Mel and how much time you spend with him. But I just love his like practicality and business sense. Well, you hear it at
Hmm.
the beginning. He's just like, "What are you gonna? Where are you gonna take this?" Like, there's a lot of film
Right.
festivals. Like, it's so funny to hear him trying to figure out like how is she gonna make this successful, and if I'm gonna be a part of it, how can I help? But like, he also doesn't want to commit at the beginning, and then it closes out with him being like, "I'm famous. Use everything you got for me." Like, he's just such a old school and an old soul who understands the industry and
Hmm.
he realizes who he is, and I think that's a big part of what makes it fun. Yeah, I would highly suggest it. I think it's one of those that I don't know that it's going to have the weight to be a part of the final documentary list, but it's polished and beautiful and really a cool documentary.
Hmm.
Um,
Very
so
cool.
the other film I watched this week was All Quiet on the Western Front. So I finally watched the film that is likely going to be it is the German submission for the International Film Awards on the in the Oscars, and so we did our favorites last week, and this movie, if I had watched it before, would have been in my it's now become my favorite international film of the year. It also has the most amazing score. I
Mm.
think it bumped Batman. It may be the score of the year for me.
Wow.
It's driving and percussive and the story is the story of a German boy who's I think about 17, and you follow him through his experiences heading to the Western Front of World War One, and it is based on a book. This is the third incarnation of the book's adaptation. I've only watched this one. Uh, it is. I don't know if you saw 1917. This is 1917 turned up to 12. Like, forget
Mm.
11. We're gonna go. It is the violence of World War One, the world that they've created. I also watched Hacksaw Ridge this last year, which I think that was a pretty brutal movie,
Mm.
telling the stories of in that ecosystem of what war looked like. This takes all of that and is like, I'm going to make it grimier. I'm going to make it more realistic, and I'm going to make it scarier. And I think that's the thing that this movie did that others. 1917, the big mark against it. People felt like it was on rails because of the long one shots that it felt like
Mm.
they had to be perfect. There is nothing that feels perfect about this film. Everything here feels real and gritty and grimy and like we're like there's a cameraman in the middle of a war happen to be capturing what's going on. Its cinematography is friggin' unbelievable. The watching of the impact and some of the shots, like there's very early on, there's it feels like a drone shot, and as you zoom closer to the ground, you realize you're not looking at a topographical map; it's dead bodies,
Oh
and
wow.
like it's just phenomenal what is captured on film here. Um, I could not be more impressed with a film. it
Wow.
it it leapfrogged so much of my favorites. It went from being on my radar to being number two in my films of the year. Um,
Wow.
and I also saw it at home. This is a film I wish I had seen in a theater. This was playing at Middleburg, and I think the movie I didn't go see that I saw that I didn't see this was The Wonder. And boy, am I sad that I chose The Wonder over this. Being locked into this movie for 2 hours and 29 minutes in a theater in a black room where you're not second screening, where you're not being distracted, it would have
Mm.
been even it may have been my film of the year, to be honest.
I think if it gets traction and if it does garner an award, I think it'll be re-released into theaters.
I think this is possibly going to make its way to the best picture list.
Wow,
There's often now one international film that they
that's
seem to
true.
hold a slot for. The big question is it Decision to Leave or is it All Quiet on the Western Front? And I think they are two very different types of movies. And I think
Mm,
what you get here is more moving and more cinema. It's more story than what is going on in Decision to Leave is this beautiful small treatise on. It's sort of like Park Chan Wook taking on Vertigo, right? Like
mhm,
his heavily influenced by Hitchcock and the storytelling. There's beautiful cinematography in that. This movie trumps all. It is a maximalist wartime footage film, and I there's so much going on in this film that it's not even. I'm gonna write a blog post, a review of it because I really want to spend some more time with it. But boy, it was unreal. You should watch it. It's on Netflix.
yeah. And that wraps up some of the films we watch as we segue into our main review, which is something that is also on Netflix. Netflix is, I mean, you know what? I'm surprised that we didn't put as like winning the year last year. Like Netflix did okay.
Yeah,
Like I know that they're having some issues with like, changing subscription prices and all this stuff, but like they put out a ton of movies that or Netflix originals or whatever you want to call them that are pretty great, and the series that they've also put out are also fabulous. So kudos to you, Netflix.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's funny. We talked about a little bit in the distribution side, right? Like I made the
mhm,
joke that I think like A24 may have had the year, right? Like, but when it comes down to it, Netflix is housing a lot of these. The thing I think that is hurting Netflix at this point is that they have not gotten that Best Picture winner. That
mhm,
that's why I think a lot of these films are getting funded on under the Netflix umbrella. I think they were hopeful that White Noise or Knives Out, there's a bunch of films that they were hopeful would be even bigger than they are.
mhm. Yeah. Speaking of white noise, that's what we're gonna mainly try and focus on today. This is something that maybe had a very very small theatrical release.
Yep.
You can now see it on Netflix, and Robbie actually got to see it in person at the Middleburg Film Festival. So before we and I believe you talked about it on the on the Middleburg Film Festival podcast that we did. So you can go back and listen to that. But really quickly, do you want to talk about maybe like the difference between seeing it actually in a theater with like people versus at home?
Yeah, this movie is I'm a big fan of Noah Baumbach. I really like his storytelling perspective, and I like the things he's
Hmm.
directed up to this point. This is the first thing that he's adapted, so there's a lot of people who are talking about sort of the comparison of maybe like Paul Thomas Anderson doing no,
Wes
sorry,
Anderson.
Wes Anderson doing Inherent Vice, right? Like that is the first sort of big book adaptation written that had a huge impact on a certain segment of the population. This is the
Mhm.
similar kind of story. You've got
Mhm.
a book that was really had a huge cultural impact on the certain people, like mostly college students in the 90s falling into this book written by Don
Mhm.
DeLeo. I think what I was the big variance for me seeing it home versus seeing it at Middleburg was again sort of the second screening effect. We were so locked in to White Noise because it was such a big deal to see it there. Noah
Mhm.
Baumbach was there, came out at the beginning, thanked people for showing up. They gave him an award. He did a Q&A afterwards. It really heightened the whole experience. I
Cool.
think not taking away from it, but this film has three major segments. You
Yes.
know, before the event, and then the post event. And I think that the middle segment of the movie, in my opinion, works the best. The
Mhm.
actual event section, and seeing that in a very dark theater with the audience reacting to it was powerful. And I think there was so much hype for everybody going into this film that it even probably played better. And the first sequence had more impact because we had just seen Noah Baumbach and seen him receive an award, and now we were watching his brand new film. So I think
Mhm.
that's the thing I'm taking away from a lot of my experiences at Middleburg is I almost have to shave like half a star off of everything because of the excitement of seeing these films in that environment.
Mm.
I think I loved the experience of seeing this film, and I think it was a good experience. I don't think I love the film, and I think
Interesting.
seeing it a second time, very similarly, I love the characters. I love some of the sequences. I think there are things I will forever be laughing about. There's silly aspects in the trailer. You see the station wagon end up in a river, and there's a really great scene where like the kids are all everybody's bickering in the car, and finally, literally Adam Driver's like, "Is anybody going to say anything about the fact that we're going sideways down a river?" Like,
Mhm.
it feels almost like National Lampoonsy, like in its handling of some of the comedy, which doesn't feel like a Noah Baumbach film. So I think that's an interesting aspect we get here is Noah's really flexing a lot of muscles that are outside of his normal like milieu. Um, the big action sequences that these are not things that he's done before, and
Yeah,
seeing him on a
I
big screen was huge.
yeah, and my experience has only been the small screen, and I got to say, like I was captivated. I really really enjoyed this movie because I didn't know didn't know anything going into it. I knew that you had seen it, and I knew that we were going to review it, so I was like, okay, got to watch this. It's kudos also to 2022 being the year of longer movies because this is a little bit of a longer movie, but
Yeah.
I was I was I was there was so much about this movie that I really, really enjoyed. I think first and foremost, for me, like I loved. I mean, to me, this is written like a stage play,
Yes.
and I think that the dialogue is delivered like a stage play. Whereas, like, there is no time, there's no air between anything. It's like bam, 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 bam. It's very kind of, um, it clips along, and they're saying a lot of like, they're saying like huge ideas sometimes, but like they're just like laser focused going for it. And there's no like, um there's no like thinking time. It's just like they're talking, they're thinking as they're talking, which is
Yep.
always something that they say, like especially in theater where it's like think on the line. And I think that that's like throughout the entire movie, and I thought it was just captivating to see it. And I thought that it was really cool to see camera moves that were choreographed to hit certain, like, like they're going through a big crowd and the camera is moving and you're getting the dialogue from, like, like the supporting cast, like as it's going around. I thought that was just fantastic. There's like, not to use a problematic name, but like it was very like there was a Woody Allen feel to it, like in it, like with kind of refocused,
Mhm.
to not be so Woody Allen, but yet be a little Woody Allen. Uh, yeah, and just like the world that this movie is just like absurd.
Yeah.
Where uh um oh my god, I'm blanking on his name.
Adam Driver?
Um, Adam Driver he is the number one professor of Hitler studies in
Yeah.
America. And there's a Hitler convention coming to the college on the hill in which he is the professor at. Um, and there's another professor who wants to teach a whole class about Elvis Presley. It's just like there are very strange things that happen in this movie, and I loved every second of it. And I think that you you can't classify this movie easily. It's not necessarily a comedy, but it's funny. It's not necessarily a drama, but there are very moving parts. It's absurdist. There's action in this movie. There are a lot of things that I think are very Spielbergian, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, the way
you
that he
know,
shoots the event. So the middle of this film is really uh, the movie opens with this table setting of what the world is, right? And you see the world that we're inhabiting, and then all of a sudden there's a train crash. So a tractor trailer gets hit by a train, and it creates what is called eventually becomes an airborne toxic event.
mhm.
But the way that shot feels so for me, what it got me was it felt like I was watching someone homaging the way Spielberg does screen sets, like
Mhm.
how he stages things. It almost to the way that I saw like J.J. Abrams, Abrams doing in like what was the movie that was named after it was the kids movie where a
Right. It
creature.
was his homage to E.T. I know what you're talking
Right.
about.
And it felt that watching it again reminded me so much of that of how much these directors have been influenced by Spielberg's style and his cinematographer. And that's what is really amazing because Noah Baumbach talked about not at Middleburg but on an interview I listened to him discuss the fact that this is the second film that he's had a choreographer for non-dance scenes. So
Mm.
the sequence that takes place at the very beginning, where the family is all in the kitchen and kitchen dining area, is so tight. They move through the space. They're talking over one another. But he talked about the fact that they like rehearsed that for like a week for that one scene because he wanted it to just feel like it flowed, like they know how to move around one another. So it
Mhm.
just became second nature for them to be. But that all came out of him working with a choreographer in his last film and how much it impacted the way he now tells stories. I think going
Yeah.
forward, you'll see more of that. I think one thing that I've picked up by watching Noah Baumbach's films is he is a director that is learning on every film and bringing a new bag of tricks every time.
Right.
Right? He's tackling and
Growth.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is growing visually as a storyteller in every film he takes on. And this is the
Yeah.
first film that's had action in it, that's had a big explosion, that's had all of that
The
is not the
yeah.
things that he's been known for. And that this is a
Mhm.
huge swing taking on a book that is so revered and also that is outside of his wheelhouse, like not telling the story, not writing the story himself, adapting somebody else's work, taking on a huge budget. He's $100 million film, right? He's never done any of this before, and it's a
Mhm.
huge success, even if it
Yeah.
wasn't a film I think is going to win an Oscar.
Mm.
It's beautifully shot. That's the other thing. Like the production design on this movie is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The AMP that you walk into is it's unfathomable how much time the set decorators had to put into that AMP. It's
Mhm.
just like a warehouse sized AMP where everything is perfect. Every line is crisp. Every shelf is perfect. Right. Uh, it's
The
mind blowing how much work went into the production design.
It's so interesting because there's a moment in the AMP where they go down an aisle and everything in that aisle is in a white package with just a word on it. And I kind of remember like my father loved to shop at in this area. I don't know if you had in New York, like Pathmark
Yeah.
was Like, he loved to shop at Pathmark. Like, it was actually not the closest grocery store, but for some reason, my father always loved to shop at Pathmark, so he would take me, and, like, there was always a section, and it was like, and I kind of remember, like, very basic cans and bags that I guess maybe that was the Pathmark brand, but it was always very interesting.
Yep.
So that kind of brought me back to a place that I appreciated. Yeah, the there's something like also. I mean, I've never read the book, so I don't know how well this is. Like if a lot of these events are in the book or anything, but there was like something almost Monty Python esque about the movie,
Hmm.
like the level of absurdity
Yeah.
that is in this, but with like an elegance and I guess like yeah, like absurdists are usually very cerebral and it's like I don't know. I was just very captivated and very like I was very happy that this was on our docket for review, because it was a nice surprise for me. I wasn't ready for it.
I want to spend a few minutes talking about the casting. I think the story I heard is that Noah Baumbach sent a copy of the book to Adam Driver, and 3 days later, Adam called him and was like, "When are we making this? And can Greta be
Man,
my wife?"
I
You
want
know,
that kind of relationship with the director.
I think the casting is really great. I think it's a big swing for Adam Driver, and
Hmm.
he's a guy who takes big swings. Uh, I think Martin Scorsese recently said that Adam Driver is the actor of his generation. I think we're
Mm.
starting to see more and more him just constantly knocking it out of the park, no matter what he's in. He's the best part of most movies he's a part of, is the way I would put it. And honestly, I love Greta Gerwig getting back in front of the camera.
Hmm.
Her portrayal of Babette in this movie is really of like a woman who is adrift yet connected to her husband and her kids. She plays this like almost ethereal quality of like a fairy like woman who is there and is not there at the same time.
Hmm.
And I think it's really charming. I think I also love her the physical transformations they both go through, like Adam Driver having a little paunch and but like playing his physicality in the movie is so interesting, and so is hers, like having her in like sweatpants that are a little sweatsuits that are a little oversized, and the crinkle cut
Hmm.
hair, right, of the 80s. So much fun. And Don Cheadle as Murray is,
He's fantastic.
I mean, he opens the movie. You don't realize,
Yeah.
like, if you think back to it, right? He's doing a lecture on car crashes and how American car crashes are about like Americana, and they all have a positive spin. It's an
Hmm.
unbelievable monologue that he's giving at the beginning. But this movie has a lot of those type of monologues, like the back and forth between Adam Driver's character and Don Cheadle's character, where they're having a lecture about Elvis and Hitler and how,
At the same time, yeah.
yeah, and they sort of are overlapping so much. It's a little on the nose, but so much of the dialogue feels like you're creating white noise, right?
Mm.
That's like the family unit when they're all. It's a constant buzz when all the kids are
Hmm.
talking and Babette's getting involved, and then and then Jack is. It's really interesting how much white noise I was, especially on second viewing, how much of it is like this crescendo of sound that's happening
Hmm.
all the time. And the scenes with Murray and Jack, having a single lecture where they're both lecturing about two different topics, and
Yeah.
how they're distinct yet overlapping, and the way the audio is captured. I think the sound engineering on this movie is unbelievable. It really makes a huge difference. And then the score, right? Danny Elfman's score running throughout this movie, and then the final song of LCD Sound System, like literally having Noah contact the band and say like, I'd like you to write an upbeat song for me to end this film with. And he talked about shooting it. It was one of the things I heard at Middleburg. They started shooting the final sequence without the music. It wasn't yet available, but he knew it was going to be
Wow.
upbeat, so they shot all these scenes that eventually made up sort of the finale, without
Hmm.
the actual beat it was going to be
They were
connected
probably
to.
like just they probably just knew what beats per minute it was going to be and just like, you know,
Well,
through
it's
the
an
clicker, I
LCD
guess.
sound system song, so you have sort of a huge catalog to base your assumptions
Right.
against. But he also
Yeah.
told him like, I want it to be upbeat and I want it to be from you. So like,
Yeah.
I'm sure Noah had a couple of ideas of what songs he was trying to reference. But yeah, it was interesting they didn't even have the music to start shooting that final sequence.
Yeah, I mean, if I had watched this last year, this would have been on my list of like favorite things. It's just yeah, it was like a really interesting, different movie, nothing like anything else that I think I saw. And I definitely want to watch it again because I was so of everything else, I was just like so into the dialogue and just
Yeah.
like the delivery of the dialogue from like top to bottom. Like the kids in this movie are fantastic. Like everyone is working at the top of their game in this movie, and yeah, it was really enjoyable. It's not something that I think you can just kind of like crack a beer and like slouch back and just like kind of turn on. It's like you have to be an active participant in this
Yes.
movie, and that's maybe and sometimes that's not for everybody. Um, but I had a great time kind of like engaging with the movie and trying to follow along and like try to guess a little bit where it's going to go and then being completely wrong or this or that. It was a great experience.
I think the last thing we should call out is all of the child actors are fantastic.
Yes.
Raffi Cassidy as Denise is sparring with Greta Gerwig and Adam Driver and back and forth like Heinrich, who's played by Sam Novala, is spends so much time being the centerpiece of the family, especially when they get to the camp and he's sort of telling everybody what's happening. He's living under his father's wing of being a teacher, it's unreal watching these kids really just sing and steal scenes.
Hmm.
I would say Raffi Cassidy is, in a less complicated year for Best Supporting Actress, she could have gotten a nod coming out of this film.
Mm.
I think she's great. So many aspects of it feel like you've turned a corner of like seeing somebody for the first time. She walks around wearing that visor, and the visor becomes like almost her totem. It feels like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a blast. There's so much fun being had by everybody on the set, and I think that was the thing I took away from Middleburg is Noah Baumbach talked so positively about this film and about how much fun he had, and
Mm.
getting a chance to direct Adam again and to work with his wife, and like it just there's fun being had on the set, and I feel like it comes through even in the little
Yeah.
aspects of the family interacting with one another. They're playing characters that are yeah, have a familial connection, but I also feel like their connection as actors to one another is obvious. How well they interact, how well they can dance with one another in those scenes, verbally and physically moving in the same space, and also all the stuff that takes place in the car is just so fun. And I think is very different than anything else I've ever seen. And I do think it was one of my favorite experiences at Middleburg for sure.
Great. And also I haven't really been following his career, but kudos to seeing Andre 3000 on the screen again. It's like I think he's been pretty consistently working as an actor now, but it's pretty cool. So
Yeah, and I mean, the final sequence has is a big musical number where there's a lot of people
mhm.
dancing, and honestly, Andre is so good in that. Like, just the few seconds you see of him, you can feel his energy as a performer,
Mhm.
and it's obvious. It just oozes off the screen that he is Captain Charisma,
Yeah.
in his little scenes that he's in this movie.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think if you haven't checked it out yet and you're looking for something to kind of challenge you as a viewer to stay engaged, check it out. Definitely.
Yeah, I would say this is sort of one of the last films I think we're going to be reviewing that was at Middleburg. My hope for next week is I'm going to have less time to watch things. I think John and I have talked a little bit. We may have a main review of Megan next week. I'm really
I'm
excited. I'm so excited to
excited.
tackle this film. Everybody is buzzing about it right now. I was
I'm
hopeful.
surprised that you're excited, my friend. This doesn't seem like a Robbie film.
It's a PG-13 dark horror comedy, is what it sounds like. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in. I can't
Awesome.
wait to
I'm
see it.
excited.
The thing that makes me sad is I was going to try to sneak away and see it yesterday, but the AMC, all the theaters near me were only showing it after 5 p.m. So there were
Yeah,
no
for
daytime showings at all. And I
right.
was going to
Well,
try
they
to
were
sneak away.
honoring the technically it opens on Friday, but you can
Yeah.
see it on Thursday situation.
Yeah. If there had been like a 2 o'clock showing yesterday, I would have snuck away and saw it yesterday. That's how excited I am to see this movie. The buzz that's coming out from, I mean, as of right now on Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's a 94%. Like it's crazy how high the ratings are for this film.
Bloomhouse had a good year too last year.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So that's it for us this week. Look forward to chatting with you next week, John. Megan should be a blast. And thank you so much for digging into this film with me and all the shorts. That was a surprise.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to get involved with the shorts this early, but all of a sudden I was like, I have a little bit of time, and the short list came out. So I was like, let me see what I can find. And then you were game and you jumped in and watched a lot of shorts with me. So thanks so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for listening, everybody. And see you next week.
See ya. This has been a Geek on Film podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.